Welcome to the Off-topic Iceberg. You might be confused and wondering, what's off-topic? Well, off-topic is a kind of anything goes subform, and somehow it built a quite interesting community of active users. Off-topic is full of history, drama, and lore. Now, before I start this iceberg, I just want to explain some quick terminology I will use throughout this video. Firstly, I will be abbreviating off-topic into OT. Secondly, for those unfamiliar with how forms work, necroing means to revive a dead thread. This is usually seen as something negative. Lastly, I want to credit Aireunaeus for making this iceberg. At the very top of the iceberg, we have something every off-topic regular is at least aware of: the rules of OT. These regulations were set by Ephemeral years ago, banning spam, harassment, unshot content, and enforcing the legendary one thread a day rule. Even the free anime girl gift tradition for birthday threads is baked into these rules. Break them and you risk exile. A thread made by Brainage, it's pinned at the top of OT and kinda acts as a containment zone for all the shitposts to get funneled into. Instead of people making new threads that clog up the front page of the forum, people can shitpost in the shitpost thread and OT becomes cleaner as a whole. The OT Chronicles were made by Abraker, and the Chronicles are like the definitive archive of history of OT. It divides OT history into different eras, and each era marks a cultural shift in the subform. A collaborative writing thread where users would write a chapter or two to create a larger story. An audiobook version of this was later made by Stomiks after OT book was completed, and some attempts were made to try to recreate the thread's success, like OT Library, which kind of was the spiritual successor to OT book. And OT Book 3 was also in the talks of being made, but sadly these projects never saw the same success as the original. After OT grew tired of being ruled by the GMT overlords, OTers formed the OT Gov as a way to work more collaboratively with the GMTs. There has been multiple OT presidents throughout history of the forum. The list of presidents goes Akramalea, Abraker, Penguin, GooeyBits, Elf 2013, and finally, OT's current president, Patatita. The Art of OT, a detailed guide made by Shinran helping newcomers learn OT etiquette, terminology, and thread making strategies. This guide touches on important things such how to make high quality threads, how to make friends in OT, and OT social structure, and the impact of the changing meta in OT. I think this is one of the best guides in OT, and it's definitely a must read for everyone. To fully understand this entry, I will first give a little explanation of what a denizen actually is. A denizen is kind of like an OT veteran who has spent significant amount of time in the subform, a title that first started as a means to recognize active users, and it kind of quickly developed into this status symbol in OT. Requirements to become a denizen have changed over the years, but currently it's 8 months of activity and 500 posts as the minimum requirement for someone to be qualified to be given the title. Valhalla is a term that is usually used to refer to threads that are considered to be of exceptional high quality. The concept comes from Abraker's thread, the Valhalla of OT, where he lists all the high quality threads in OT viewed from his perspective. The definition of an OT overlord, as stated in the OT Encyclopedia, is OT overlord was a term meant to be referred to a person in charge of moderating OT. This term is currently in disuse. OT has had multiple OT overlords and they're always GMTs or some sort of moderators. For some weird reason, some people will go to like old threads that were made 9 years ago and post hi. This will bring the thread back into OT's front page, making the front page a bit clogged with old threads that aren't relevant anymore. And this usually results in the original thread getting locked. This is OT's official Discord, and it's where you can find a lot of old users who are not active in OT anymore. You can also find here users who were banned from OT. A lot of the older users blame OT News for the reason why OT feels less personal. Post for gold. This was a thread where users would win SR bucks, aka Shinran bucks, for posting. There were a couple anti-post farm rules, but 1 SR buck would equal more or less 1 cent, and you could later redeem your SR bucks for OSU supporter or for other purchases. Wasteland. This is where all deleted threads go. They don't actually get deleted off the forum, they just get sent to a place that only GMTs and other mods can see. They're not gone forever, but kind of hidden. And for the final entry in this layer, Off-topic Wiki. A community written guide in the Osu Wiki explaining OT culture and terminology. Quite an interesting read for anyone who's interested in OT. The OT skin. OT skin came about from the average OT thread turning into a skinning discussion, when Abraker had the idea of making an OT skin. Eventually, Cornet 2.3 released OT skin on February 11th, 2021. This skin supports all game modes and it's actually pretty cool. OT's Got Talent. This was a competition hosted by Stomiks, modeled after a talent show. OTers submitted skills from singing to playing really low AR standard Osu maps, and OT Got Talent had a crazy production value, with its own intro songs, outro songs, and a custom winning announcement video. Eventually, its plays won OT Got Talent with their beautiful singing, winning 2 months of supporter, 800 SR bucks, and a gift that was worth up to $25. Daily title changing threads. These were threads where the title would change daily. Usually a new title would come from the community or from a reply. And the first and most successful title changing thread was made by DPs, which lasted a whopping 101 days. Sequels and spin-offs were attempted, but none lasted as long. OT Game Night. This was another event organized by Shinrun, where OTers gathered to play multiplayer games like Scribble.io. It eventually grew into a more structured thread where people would compete on the leaderboards. Neo's Discord server. Created for Game Night, it eventually outlived its purpose and it became another OT hangout. This server was more aimed at newer generations at the time, so Gen 8 and Gen 9, but now the server is not as active anymore. Funnily enough, the server was not made by Shinrun, it was made by Kerimaru. Collabs. OT has had multiple collabs, some monolithic ones like OT Christmas, where each user would draw a pane of the bigger portrait, and it also has some smaller collabs that are only in between a couple users, and these are actually quite common. OT Singing Contest. I believe that this refers to Carmine's OT Song Festival, in which OTers would compete to show their musical talents. Karumi eventually won this event and actually shared his prize with the 4th and 5th place in this thread. The IIT or in this thread is quite a common thread structure in OT. You'll usually see it posted once a month, it's literally everywhere. But this entry might also be referring to a thread made by Wojan called In This Thread Too, we post shit that's neither funny nor interesting. I'm actually not sure to which thing this entry is referring. OT Therapy. A thread where Stomiks LARPed as a psychologist and gave advice and support to other OTers going through some tough times. Free Dancing Anime Girls Tradition. This is a requirement for all birthday threads so they don't feel like they wasted your time while you're reading them. Putting dancing anime girls in any thread makes the thread automatically less shitty. OT is dying. What started as a genuine concern from some OTers, fearing that OT was in a decline, has mostly turned into memes. You'll see a lot of parody posts of OT is dying threads everywhere. Sebastian's Story. This was a dimension hopping tale made by user Sebastian, featuring a Lucario protagonist named Sebastian, and another character named Ethan. X list of locked threads. These are threads that were dedicated to tracking which threads a specific GMT locked. Most GMTs who are active on OT have their own list. Osu Other Discord server. A Discord server with primarily Gen 8 and Gen 9 users. The server was renamed into the Gulag, and it's mostly dead nowadays after some server drama. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we have finished the first 2 layers of the Off-topic Iceberg. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.